Welcome to the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. I'm your host, Jacob Cooper. It's a pleasure having you on my channel. Today, we have quite an exciting guest. We're going to bring on my next guest, Tom McMullen, in just a moment. But welcome to my channel. For those of you who are new to the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder, we love having you on. Please make sure to check out the channel with some of our great content and videos. And you could hit that subscription button as well as bell notification icon for more up-to-date videos, and interviews coming your way. But today, let's get right into it. My next guest is going to be Tom McMullen. And, Tom has been an astrologer for several decades. I found out about Tom, through the Dead Life podcast with Alison Dubois, who we've had a couple weeks, back on the show. So Tom, is one of the resident astrologers on the Dead Life podcast, and he works very, very closely with Dead University. A little bit about Tom. Tom, like I said before, has been a professional astrologer for 33 years, and he specializes in a psychological and spiritual approach to his clients. He uses the symbolic language of astrology as a key to unlock individuals' amazing intuitive abilities. He has helped over 1,000 clients from all walks of life of increased awareness. He has helped others improve their relationships, create self-empowerment, and uncover hidden gifts and talents that they may have. So like I said before, he's got, an interesting background that, is based in clinical psychology, parapsychology, human services, and his, rich counseling background. And he has also studied over the years with some of the most renowned astrologers from all over the world, but maintains a unique style of his own. And he's also a public personality in the Phoenix and Scottsdale area. He's interviewed for a lot of media and magazine stuff. So he's going to be a great guest. And he also has a background in stand-up comedy as well. So this man does it all, and he's a real personification of an old soul and someone who's just been around the block and, really has a great deal of grasp of many different lifetimes and many ways to help cultivate human potential. So Tom McMullen is my next guest. Tom, welcome to the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder.
Tom McMullen, thank you for being an honored guest here in the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. How have you been?
I've been great, and thanks for inviting me.
No, it's a real honor. I've been following your work because I've, been a big fan of Alison Dubois, who is just a guest on my channel, and I've seen you on the Dead Life quite a few times. You're kind of like the resident astrologer with the Dead Life and Dead University, and I just love your insights and banter with Alison. It's just well, I think it certainly is a match made in heaven with the two of you, both brilliant air signs, and I'm a big fan of your work. So thank you for coming on, my channel.
Well, Alison and I just finished a podcast ourselves just today, so on Leo in this next month in August. So yeah, we do it periodically. We're very good friends, so we have different modalities. And I respect her for what she does, and she respects me for what I do. So we're a good team.
Unquestionably so. And she's wonderful, as are you, and you both work, like you said, different ways, but it provides a tremendous amount of healing. And it seemed from looking at the videos that you've done with her that you've both been able to elevate each other's personal and professional lives together. So it's such a great union that the two of you have. Now, in the intro, I was reading your bio, and it showed that you've been practicing astrology for as long as I've been alive, literally 33 years, which is, a master number. So you've been doing this a while, but and you look like a young spring chicken. So that boggles my mind. You and Alison are both ageless. You got to, give me some tools after that for that. But what was your impetus in getting you interested in astrology? And tell us a little bit about your background and, a little bit about your beginnings with astrology.
My process. Well, yes, I am a boomer. I've always looked 10 years or more younger than I actually am. I'm 67, and most people never believe it, but I am. So I am a boomer as a generation. And, astrology wasn't something I wanted to do in my life, because for a male baby boomer, that would be ridiculous, because men are defined externally by their position in life and their career, how much money they make, and their social status and how providing for their family. That is a man's ego. And that was definitely my ego coming in, because my past life were directed mostly by exactly those things, especially money and fitting in a male character in a world that had it defined already. So, but my soul wanted to be very different things that I didn't know. I wanted to be an actor because I was a complete drama nerd when I was in high school, and I grew up in Los Angeles, and I had an agent in my teens going to studios auditioning for roles. And so at 19, my first major for college was drama. And then at 20 years old, my soul went away and my personality came back and said, well, I can't do that. How am I going to be successful, make money, and fit in? So I abandoned it right away. It was at the age of 30. There's a period of time from 29 to 30. We go through something called the Saturn return. And that is when we shift back into, wanting what we really want to do in this life, that when we were in our late teens, early 20s wanted to do, but it becomes more serious. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, because I had just lost a job I thought I was going to have. I was working in antiques and sales for all through my 20s. And then I was let go because my boss became a cocaine addict. And so I had to start all over, and I didn't know what to do. And so everything I did for the most part until my late 40s was to have different jobs where I tried to make money and fit in and survive, and what most men do. My personality put me in sales by virtue of the fact that I'm just natural at it, and I've sold a lot of things in different fields. I have a background in design. That's something that came in with me artistically. All spiritual souls are artistic souls. They tend to work together. And mine, being a Libra, was interior design. And so I did that for quite a while in my career. I could do it. It was like easy. I can see color in color. It's very acute. And but it wasn't something I really cared about. It wasn't passionate. But at the age of 30, I wanted to study astrology, because at the time, that subject and all the other esoteric subjects were very popular, and I was reading all the books, but astrology seemed to pull me. And so I studied and read all the books, and I met an astrologer that I had tutor me, because I was really interested in the subject itself. I didn't want to be an astrologer. That's as stupid as being an actor. So it didn't make any sense to do it. It just made sense that I was fascinated by this language, and I'll describe what that means in a minute. And then it just, one thing came to another. I'm doing people's charts, friends, family, or whatever, and then it was something I really enjoyed and I really vibed with in a different level. But so I did it on and off part-time, and worked in spas here and there, like, on call as an astrologer when I moved to Phoenix. And it was just something I did on the side, but I wouldn't even tell people I did it, because, I'm not fitting into society and making money and being successful with that consciousness. So the whole understanding of that was that it was being pushed to me by, what we call spirit. It was being pushed by my soul, and I resisted it because of my personality and my belief that I couldn't survive and make money and fit in, because that's what the external world said to me. So, this was something that the language itself, when I started learning it, the reason I was drawn to it is because, Jacob, it's a conceptual language. It's right brain, not left brain, just like anything artistic. So when you're doing something artistic, you don't analyze it. You feel it and you see it. It's a visionary experience. Astrology is a language of symbols. It's not English. English has specific words, and there are many meanings to the energy itself. Like if I gave you the word harmony, there's probably a dozen words that mean the same thing. But in Asian language or in astrology, they're all symbol languages, and the symbol means all of those things. It's like it gives you the whole essence of what it is. And so a chart in astrology is this language of putting all these pieces of our essence and our energy together to find the whole of the person. I was drawn to what we call in modern astrology evolutionary soul astrology. I just don't do the personality. You have to do that part first, but then you have to understand the essence of the journey of why we're here. Your chart is a navigational device that you created coming in that would define the journey of your soul coming into this life. And so in a soul astrology, we look at the past, present, and future as a whole. So we come in obviously with the past. So my readings are karmically driven to dharmically driven. So the karma is what we brought in from our past life, and the issues we're going to bring back in again to work on right away. These are the wounds and the challenges of the past, the things that you kept trying to do but never felt it was who you were. And so we go through it early on. We are born into a family that signatures our karma and our struggles. We take it into our early relationship profile, the things we do when we become adults. And at some point, every lifetime is to liberate the previous. We must let go of the wounds of the past, and we have to go through them in order to heal them. But they're unconscious. They're not conscious. So when I study a chart, I spend 2 hours with someone's chart because I read it as a book. It's a novel and a story and a character and a story. And because of my empathic, intuitive nature, I become the character after 2 hours and I go through the story with them. So my ability is to take you through the journey of what you brought in, take you on the journey through your early parts of life, your family relationships, why they look the way they do, what you have learned from it, how you've grown from it, and where you are in your life at any age, whether it's 25, 35, 45, or 65, it doesn't matter. You're going to go through your karma. It's inevitable. We have to in order to heal so we can grow and become something new, something progressed and more. And so that's the dynamic of change. Change is something exists because the past is the known. The past is what secured us, and our survival was dependent on what secured us. So why we keep repeating these habits and patterns is because we know the outcome to them. Fear lies in the unknown, Jacob. It's the unknown where we think our security and survival are threatened. And therefore, we look at the external world to guide us in the shoulds of what we're supposed to be from our religion, our societal positions, our family dynamics, our gender. And they tell us this is what we're supposed to be doing. But the soul usually has a different agenda because it can't keep doing the same thing. So I take the person through their karma and reveal to them consciously what the wounds have been and what they are, where they are in it at the time they come to me in a reading, and where I can tell them their soul is trying to get them to. So I understand their fears. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. There's no judgment because it's just them and their own story, creating what I call a consciousness to the unconscious dynamics of your journey. It is like psychology, but it's more, it's for me, I was a psych major after I didn't become a major in drama. And it didn't work for me because it was so left brain, all these different theories and philosophies, and you can't analyze these things. And so Carl Jung was the only one that I vibed with because he dealt with the unconscious and he also used astrology. And I didn't know that till later after I had become one, that he was very much a part of that same consciousness of work. So I've been doing this for 33 years. I didn't start out doing this type of astrology beginning because you have to do the personality first. So all the, oh yeah, you're a Libra, you're a Capricorn, this is, and you put the pieces together. But now I become the person. And that's kind of like, my gift is to give the person their life to them of what they are and what they're really wanting at the soul level. That's what I do.
Wow. So you've unloaded a great deal of
I know.
information.
My readings are like that.
And I loved that's what I love about you is you're very insightful and you come from, a very psychological, philosophical orientation. You work very uniquely and different and spiritual. And it almost reminds me of my birthday twin, Shirley MacLaine, of what you were saying, where in order to get the fruit on the tree, one must go on a limb. And I think for us to break patterns, we have to expand, our uncomfort zone. We have to get out of our comfort zone to grow. It's like you look at this world right now without, getting past the ideology that it was flat, we wouldn't know that it was round. And there's still flat earthers and they're, kind of crazy, but that's that's their agenda, but it's so true. We could really find new worlds. But so from what you're saying, you're able to really enter that person's shoes and kind of empath.
I know what's going on in their head. I know their fears, their desires, all of it. And I bring it to light. Like you said, insight is I turn on lights for people And they always say to me, have you been in my pocket my whole life going through what I go, I am now. Because it's like when you read a book or watch a movie, you attach to a character and you can feel them and see them in the characters you're watching it.
Wow.
That happens to me at a very acute level. I'm never wrong. Because it's like, yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's like, you know, why your mother's this way, your father's that way, why you make these decisions. And but there's no judgment. It is never me. Anyone that does really true spiritual work, it isn't me at all. I couldn't do this work if I made it about me. I can do this, and spirit brings people to me that I can help spirit give them the message they're trying to find themselves. I'm trying to uplift someone in their life and to empower them for their true soul. Allison brings people, I don't want her gift because she brings people that are suffering and in grief and sad, and it's so heavy and dark. And I do the complete opposite. I try to bring your life back to you, for you. But the thing is, Jacob, change is inevitable in every new life because we're evolving, we're adding on as we go. There's no going backwards, even though we try to. I resisted astrology because it was new and unknown to me, and I didn't believe or trust it. And so therefore I didn't trust that I could do it. And now this is all I do, and that's a whole nother story. But understand that there's two perceptions of change. One is though you feel it's happening to you, like you have no choice.
Right.
And this is the victim consciousness of those who feel powerless and helpless in their life. And then there's the other, which is you yourself decide at some point, I can't keep doing this. I can't do this relationship. It's the same thing over and over, and it's not working. And this is what I want, but I don't know what I want, but I know I don't want this. That's the beginning of the shift of you taking a risk, trying something else, and seeing where it takes you.
Wow.
I did this in my late 40s. I threw my book away and started over because all my karma came to light in a very strong aspect in my chart. And it was a relationship profile that I was going through. And I ended it. And then I realized I started to work on me instead of somebody else because I'm a savior and a fixer like everybody else who does this work. And I'm not at all. I'm a savior and a fixer for me first. And so, you know, what essentially happened is I took risks and went into the unknown in so many ways that I just did it. I just did the Aries side, you know, and it was so funny because what I found on the other side was not bad things, was not, you know, what most people feel bad things happen. I found miracles and I never stopped. And, you know, to this day, Spirit kept giving me what I said I wanted to do every time I put myself on a path to do it. So I have a philosophy about change and about spirit, and that is whatever path you're on, Spirit gives you exactly what that is. And the reason I know that's true is because it's easy to get drugs. So if you got someone down the street who's homeless and has no job, no money or whatever, but every day for some reason they seem to have drugs, how is that possible? Because they know their path. And there are only two paths. There's one to destruct or construct. That is it in a nutshell. There's nothing else. Whether we do it for ourselves or to someone else, that is the nature of all things, and our desires is to construct or destruct, and the desire to hold on to which is known and familiar, and the desire to liberate. Those are the strongest pulls of our unconscious, and we're all going through it.
So when I was sitting back, I kind of maybe I intuited something, but I know you mentioned a Libra, and as we know, the opposite of Libra is Aries, which my moon and my rising is in. But would you say that the purpose of some of the big, strong planetary forces in our chart are there for us to evolve from and to learn the lessons from? Is that kind of it? So for instance, a Libra is very much about the others, and it seems like for you, you've learned how to self-prioritize. And is that along the lines of what
That's
you're
because I
saying?
found my Aries side later in life, because we always have an opposite that we're pulling from. I was very indecisive as a child. I was a people pleaser. I was trying to save my relationship profile. I would draw in unhappy, depressed alcoholics because that's how my mother died. So I would try and save those souls in my relationship. And I'm gay, so they're male. And I had two profiles, a 7-year relationship that was partly dad. My dad was bipolar and delusional. My mother was a massive alcoholic. So I had no foundation, no grounding in myself, but I was around those who were very damaged and broken, and meaning that I was in my past, because there are reflections of my past. And So, 7 years for the first, and the second year was 13 years. And then the second one, he was very much a mirror of my mother. And I woke up one day and I looked at what I was doing, and what I was trying to give him everything. There's where, let me give you a wonderful life, what I would think someone would want, because that's what I want. And he didn't want any of it. And I woke up one day and I said, I'm interfering with his path. It was the first objective thing I had to myself, that what I was doing was wrong, that it didn't have any purpose of anybody other than what I wanted someone to have, not what they wanted. And it was so clear to me that he didn't want these things. And so I just figured, I'm just a roadblock for this person. And then I asked myself, why am I doing it? And the answer was, because then I don't have to work on me. And that's when everything changed. That's when I threw the book away. And the first thing I said to myself, you'll love this, because this is a symbol or an actual signature of what changed to me immediately. Right after I broke up with him, I said to myself, I want my stage back, because I wanted to be an actor at 19. 2 weeks later, someone handed me a brochure on comedy classes, a local college, and I went, just took the risk and went. I did stand-up on and off for 7 years. I found that I was a writer. I found that I could be fearless and naked on stage and make people laugh and be judged like no one's ever been in there. It's the hardest and scariest thing you can do, fearless thing. And I did it. Was it scary? Yeah. Was it fun? Yeah, it was. Because I discovered myself by myself with that fear and that risk. And at the same time, which is interesting, you'll appreciate this as part of the story, Alison Dubois found me. She found me in a spa. The most famous psychic medium in the world came to me for a reading, which was like insane in itself. And when I didn't know who she was right away, but then I studied her chart, and then I knew what she was. And I asked her, I said, Alison, why are you coming to me? And she goes, well, because we can't read ourselves. And I said, okay, whatever. And I did a reading, Jacob. And then after I was done, I went home, and she called me back, and she goes, will you come back? I want you to meet my husband. Wow. So I went back, and I've been doing astrology for 18, 20 years by now. And here this woman says, this is what she said to me, you're amazing. Do you have any idea what your gift is? And I said, no, because I've been doing it by myself, without any other buddy, saying or doing. I don't give it value. She goes, you have no idea how valuable you are. She goes, will you go on tour and go on tour with me and speak?
Wow.
And so in the same time I was doing astrology, I spoke in front of same time I was doing comedy, and on stage, she said, would you go on tour and speak? And so I spoke in front of 1,000 words or 1,000 people on astrology and opened her seminars. And the funny thing is, all I said was stage. I didn't say actor. And so I was given all kinds of stages and platforms. I was on a business radio show for 3 years, being a comic to a business co-host, and because all these things, because I said, I will do this now. And I've never looked back, and I've never stopped working. This is all I do. I am booked months in advance. I make plenty of money. I don't do any of it for either of those reasons, because it's a calling, Jacob. It's not a career.
Wow.
And so I actually believed, and it's funny because I was rejecting it forever because of my own fear, my own belief that it wasn't valuable. And apparently I had value. And it was like, this is what I found out in my life so far. I have superpowers. And I actually have three superpowers. And when I was a little boy, I don't know about you, you've got a lot of Aries, so you probably do too. I wanted to have powers and be a superhero kind of little boy, and, putting on blankets around my neck and jumping off of furniture and flying and all this stuff. And all my comic books were like that. And so the first power I discovered was my design ability, because I can just go into a room and know exactly what to do. I don't know right away, but then I see it, then I know it, and then I do it. The second one, which is my favorite, is I can make people laugh. I can lift spirit. I think the best preachers and teachers are comedians, because they make you look at things objectively and help you find the humor in tragedy and find a way out of survival through it, because I live my life that way. And I'm highly observant, and because everything's funny to me, because it's also stupid. And that's how comedians are. And then the third is the thing I do now, my superpower, is I can become a person in their whole soul and nature. Wow. And so to me, it's like, okay, great. That makes me feel like everybody has them. And so in my readings, I help people find their powers, because that is the thing we all want.
Wow. And it's so antithetical to our society, which teaches that power and force is outside of you. You buy this, you become this.
Yeah.
But it goes back to real, any of the ascended masters or, teachers. I mean, Jesus would talk about that the kingdom of heaven in me is in you. And so all this stuff shouldn't be
Yeah.
a codependency. It should be an inspiration for yourself to be invigorated and empowered with the beauty and light that you see in someone else. And I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful gift. And it's congruent with what I do as a therapist, where people aren't dependent on me. They put a token into a machine. No, we give them the power back. It's very Wizard of Oz,
Yes.
very Wizard of Oz-esque, if you will, that you had the power in you the whole time,
Would you like to know my analogy or the Wizard of Oz?
Let's hear it.
Okay. So it's one of the things I lectured about. So in the story of Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, she is dissatisfied with her life of where she is. She's in a black and white Kansas town with nothing around her. So obviously she's not happy and she's unsatisfied. So she's really asking for change. She wants change in her life. Okay. So she gets it, and it comes in the form of a tornado. So the tornado comes to whisk her away, and it whisks her. She's literally in her house. That's the best part. Home. Everything is about home. Where's your home? And so she and her home go away from where she was, and then she ends up in this very colorful land of bizarre and beautiful and whatever of Oz. What is the first thing she experiences when she lands in Oz? Death.
Jotting my memory here.
Death.
Death. Yeah.
She killed the witch.
Oh yes, like her feet were out of the house and all that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the first thing that happens in change is death. So it's the first symbol that you get, like, oh my God, she killed the witch. What was interesting was what happened when she did kill the witch, because it was celebrated. The death was celebrated by everybody because the witch was bad. It was the dark side, if you will, you see. And then all of a sudden, here comes Glenda in her big bubble. And what does Glenda give Dorothy? The witch's power, her shoes, the ruby slippers. And so she goes, well, I want to go home. The first thing she wants to do is go home. That's why she left, to go back. So she puts her on a path. A yellow brick road is her path. And on the way, she picks up her heart, her mind, and her courage. But as she's picking up these three very important elements of our journey in ourselves, fear looms in the background. Fear in the guise of the Wicked Witch of the West. What does the Wicked Witch of the West want? Her power, those damn shoes. And so she goes to the Wizard of Oz. If somebody says, you have to confront your fear. You have to go to the witch and get me the broom. Means she has to confront this fear. So she goes, and eventually she kills the witch, right? And how was it received? They all celebrated again. They're all like, all evil loses at every turn in this situation. She goes back to the wizard to get her home, and he says, he's just an illusion. He's just a man behind the curtain. He has no power at all. Then she ends up on stage with the Glenda coming back and said, you always had the power to go home. Just click your heels 3 times. So when we seek ourselves outside of ourselves without knowing what our power is when we always had it, you have to realize it's always there waiting for you to find it. My job is to help people find it.
Wow. That was one of the most beautiful descriptions of a movie that can never be replicated. It was just one of the best.
You'll never watch it the same again.
They've tried it, and it's been the biggest bust of all time. You can't, it's just, to me, that movie was a divine channeled movie, and it was very, I look at it very similarly also to a near-death experience that I had, that I speak about, where, like you said, you're confronting death, and you remember like the dream and the illusion, and that home is where all our truths are, and it's all within. So
well, if you had a death experience yourself, that means you weren't ready to go. You have work to do.
Yeah.
So your soul said you have to stay. Whether someone tries to kill themselves and fail, or they do, they're going to come back. That's the thing. My mother did. My mother, was a massive alcoholic because she didn't want to be a mother. She was very unhappy. And she drank through my entire childhood from 3 to when she died when I was 15. I had a very interesting response to that as a child that was unusual. Because at 15, when my mother died, my first thought wasn't the loss of my mother. It wasn't anger. It wasn't anything else. It was, thank God she's free. Because as a sensitive, I was always attached to her pain and suffering. And I actually saw a bird leave a cage, and I was happy for her. She was finally out of pain. And so we come in with dis-eases. Interestingly enough, my father's was psychological. My mother's was psychological because dad was bipolar, only manic, and completely delusional. So both parents were extraordinarily dis-ease. The problem in our culture, Jacob, is that if they had cancer, leukemia, I would have had all kinds of support and help in that. But because they're psychological, they don't think of them as it's like our fault, you see.
There's a great
But
deal
they
of
are all
there's a great deal of
yes,
stigmatization
yes,
and just lack of education, understanding, because we're living
right,
in a very tangible world. We'll understand,
yeah.
cancer is very physical, but mental health, it's almost like that person is messed up, and it's
It's like
their
it's their
fault.
fault they're that way.
Gaslight.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
look at mental health no differently than physical health working
I
in the
don't either.
field.
Yeah.
Um, it's to me, I look at them as one and the same. And yeah, it's, I'll give an example. You'll take suicide, for instance. When people lose someone, death by suicide, there's about a 70% decrease of support of grieving loved ones around that person,
Yes.
because of the shame, because of the embarrassment, because of
Yes.
just the uncertainty of it, and it's just remarkable how much judgment there is, and just difficulty to process that versus someone who, died by cancer or heart attack, and, people who lose loved ones to suicide need it then and then some, so
But
just,
see, that's the problem because if you get cancer, it's something that happened to you, you have no power over. And if you're an alcoholic, that means it's your fault you did it. But there's a reason you're an alcoholic.
Mhm.
There's also a reason people get diseases in their body because the manifestation of our disease eventually plays out in our body.
Mhm.
I use this only as a generalization, not as a guide for all things, but I always find it interesting symbolically because everything I do is symbolism. And I always notice that, a woman's identity and her ego is to be there for everybody but herself. She's 24/7 for her family, her kids, her husband. She nurtures everyone but herself. And the interesting thing, the number one cancer for women is breast, the nurturing part of their body.
Mhm.
And the second is, ovarian and uterine, the one where all the power gets taken out of them and giving birth and whatever's happened to them by people abuse that. So there's so an overemphasis on these areas. And so how many people in women do you have to tell them to nurture themselves first? I ask women in every single reading for 33 years, what do you want? What do you think their answer is?
They want people happy. It's almost like a
No.
Libra rule. They want their kids, they want everyone around them to be satisfied, their
Yeah.
caretakers. Not
I
that they want to be happy, they want people around them
Yeah.
to be happy. It's
Their answer to me
yeah,
is, what do you mean? What do I want?
right, right.
Right.
Because they're
You
so
see,
used to caretaking and it's never about them.
even even men, because I had a very typical male last week, very big Mormon past and background and family coming in, and he was all work, 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 providing for his family, making money, doing everything, all these
Mm.
things that men do. And I asked him at 52 years old, what do you want? And he goes, what do I want? He didn't know either.
Oh,
He was so struck by not having an answer to that. So that's what I try to get people to find, is what to listen to the inside of what they really want, because what he's doing is doing everything for how a man's supposed to and a woman's doing how she's supposed to, but it all starts and begins with the biggest umbrella of what we give power to, and that's dogma, religion. It's
yeah,
ruled for thousands of years.
yeah.
Because if we didn't follow the rules, we have never had choice. You understand? Whether
Mhm.
you're Catholic, Jewish, or whatever it is, it's like it's all defined for you immediately, and then it goes. Then that's the biggest problem when someone comes in with a lot of dogma that still everything's judged externally. The fear is all there. That's where it is.
Yeah.
Judgment.
Well, that continues with, life cycles. I see a lot of clients of mine who have a midlife crisis where you've, followed all the rules, you checked off every box, and you're miserable. And you said the
Yeah,
societal script did not work. And we're programmed to just put all our eggs on external culture of myths,
but
that
that's our
have not
survival.
worked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's survival because
and
we've always done it. We've had no choice. Only the last 200 to some odd years has it slowly and gradually been moving to choice, because the Aquarian age began at that time, and that is where that was the separation of church and state. And so like
right.
now women can vote, now women can work in men's worlds, and we have these different things that we were allowed to do that we were never allowed to do before. The roles we can choose, and that is new. That's very, very new.
With still some holding on to the old, but we're trying to break free with,
Yeah.
you always have that opposition, when you're having great change of the unknown. Some will clamber into the old tradition and others, the majority, will embrace and accept. Now, you mentioned the age of the Aquarius. I'm wondering for you, when you take a step back the last couple decades, have you noticed a shift, just in terms of the field that you're into? Because at least for me, I, for instance, work in a psychiatric hospital, right? And, people aren't so much into this, whatever, but I'm by the water cooler. I guarantee 9 times out of 10, someone's mentioning Mercury retrograde, someone's talking about a psychic in town. I'm like, am I in a metaphysical store in this hospital? Like, what, it's like wherever you go, no matter what the culture is, everyone's into this. So, like, how have things changed over the decades for you?
Well, it was very big in the 70s when I was starting to learn it, and then it went away. So everything recycles back again. So we're moving away from dogma into spirituality, and the esoterics tend to be more drawn to those things because they're not they're modalities that have a different answer. It's more about it's the Asian understandings of spirituality and what we look at. So when we go inside for answers instead of outside, there are different ways to do that. They're all symbol languages. Numerology is, tarot is, astrology is. I prefer mine because I can do so much with that little map that I get. It's like it tells me everything, and I know how to do. I don't dabble in other things because the secret is because you have to focus on something to get good at it. And since I've only done astrology, I'm an expert in that subject matter. But I understand if I picked up and did someone's numbers, it would say the same thing. If I picked up a tarot deck, it would say the same. They all say the same thing. The tool isn't important. And it always frustrated me in this work because I'm called my tool. And that's why we all hate being called like psychics or what spiritual guide. There's so many words that we struggle with because there really is no word for it, for the reason that it is esoteric and conceptual. Because a carpenter isn't called a hammer, but he needs a hammer to be a carpenter.
Right.
I'm not an astrologer. I use astrology as a language to do what I can already do. It opens up my skill set, you see. So a painter needs a brush and a canvas. He's not a brush and a canvas.
I think that's one of the pitfalls of the new age, where it's almost become religion, where people have associated, incense, this, that, and they've confused the tools with the actual beauty and practice of those tools. And so people are running from religion, but the new age has almost been a constructed religion with a couple things that people do, and all of a sudden they think that they'll do these things to become spiritual, but these are just avenues to expand,
No, that's the woo-woos. I call the woo-woos. I'm not a woo-woo. I get them in readings sometimes, and I let them be who they are, and that's their way of being who they are. There's never judgment in it, but because they get all over the place because they aren't focused to begin with. You find those that are very artistic will be that way because as an artist, most artists can do many things, and they have to, like, for me, it's like I found I'm a writer, I have design ability, I have all these things that I could do and choose, and I picked design only, and then I picked astrology only, so I became good at those. But I could have been doing all those other things, and I kind of don't, because it tends to dilute the focus. And it's important to find the discipline and the focus so you don't dilute. And this is like when you get a Pisces energy, their nature is water, so they can't find the form. They're always looking for the next thing or next form. And so, and they need the Virgo side, the part that gives them the form.
Mm,
But, you know, it's like, for example, a Pisces doesn't want to be here the minute they come in.
mm.
This place is nothing
I
but
would know.
form.
I have my Venus and Mars both in Pisces, so I am a pacifist. I don't like
Well,
to fight,
obviously.
with others, and I'm very like agreeable. And I guess that's a lesson to kind of learn confrontation and use some of that other Aries influence. But yeah,
Well, the Venus in Pisces is very artistic, but it's also suffers in love,
mm.
relationships. So,
My
I'm
partner's
sure.
not listening.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Well,
But it
yeah,
is. It's a
yeah,
martyr complex in relationships a lot of the times. But
sure.
at the same time, the Mars, when you have Mars in, you know, in Pisces, and
Mm,
you have Aries influence, that's a struggle for you. That's going to
yeah.
be really tough because you want to be an independent person, but then it's hard for you to like make that decision and go, well, you're the type of person that say, yeah, I could do this, I could do that. I'm not sure which direction I'm really needing to be.
I have a lot of oppositional forces, and I'm just trying to make sense,
Yeah.
like anyone else, of the pieces of the puzzle. Now, for people, and a big theme of my channel is spirituality with practicality. I think if you're just talking about this stuff, it's good, but I find bigger value in integration, and utilization of some of these skills. So, how could people transform, astrology to everyday life? Because for me, at least, and not, this is going to sound, I'll sound like a bit of a jerk here, but it seems like a lot of people don't have a foundation, and it produces a great deal of neurosis versus useful energy because people say, oh, this is going on, so I can't live, I can't breathe, I can't. So how could people really have a strong foundation with their, astrological insights, and how could the average casual apply some of this in their everyday life?
Well, but unfortunately, right away, it becomes another religion. Okay. So you use it as a guide to say, this is telling me what my life is going to be. I am the completely opposite of that as an astrologer. If someone's, you know, if I went to an astrologer, and I've been to quite a few, and they tell me what I'm supposed to be doing, I learned very early that that's not how it works. And so I get very angry when people go to astrology and say, well, this psychic astrologer I went to said this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, that's all about them now, isn't it? Because if it happens, they're really good at what they do. If it doesn't happen, well, oh, well, they were wrong. You're giving your power to somebody else telling you what your life is. I do the complete opposite.
Hmm.
So, you know, and it's not, people want to latch on to the next thing or find the religion in the thing. And that's the same thing you've been doing in another modality, whether it's, you know, Catholicism or Judaism or anything else.
Hmm.
So, you know, Allison tends to do this sometimes. She always calls her opposition in Leo because she's an Aquarian. Well, you know, we all have oppositions. And then we did that podcast today had a lot to do with oppositions. We're pulled into dynamics. One is to hold on to what we know, and the other is to liberate into the unknown. So, you know, for me, I was naturally a Libra, and I had to learn the Aries side. I can make decisions all day long now. In fact, what happened to me in my shift and transformation of what I discovered is the most wonderful thing that ever happened when I started over in my late 40s is that I graduated from the school of I don't care what other people think. And
Yeah.
that was the beginning of me finding me because I just, you know, and I laugh because I'm a gay astrologer. What the hell was I thinking? Trying to fit in for 20 years in a world I'm never going to fit into. And I laughed at it. It made me laugh because it's like, what are you doing? You're never fitting in. And even in the gay culture, they don't know what I do. They
Mm,
don't understand it. They, you know, they're all still doing regular jobs and things like that or whatever. And it's like, what's that? And I don't feel I have to explain myself. But I carried the burden of it for so long because of the ego needing to be defined by somebody else and making it okay. I don't care anymore,
wow.
you
And
know?
that's when it seemed like that was a big catharsis in your life when things just started to open up, and
Yeah.
it was a rebirth. I think in order to find yourself, you have to be willing to lose that part of yourself and let that part go. And so many just want to hold for dear life to that, whether that's the body, whether that's the job, whatever it is, we just get attached to things. And that I think gets in the way of our evolution and progress.
But it's the answer is what you're feeling when you're in that place. So if you hate your job or you're unhappy where you are, then death has to happen. It's inevitable for it to not be there anymore. So if you're in a bad relationship and it's not working and you're not happy, or whatever you're doing isn't what you really want and isn't working out for you, then why are you there? But then that requires change and risk. And that's, we get comfortable. It's easy to be a victim, Jacob. It's just easy.
Yeah.
And so, for me, freeing myself was so great, even as a Libra. 2.5 years ago, I was selling my house and I wanted to get new appliances to freshen it up. And I was sitting in an appliance store in Phoenix with this 60-some-year-old white salesman. And in typical sales positions, he sits there while he's writing the contract and goes, "So, Tom, what do you do?" I go, "I'm an astrologer." Well, the pain and quiet and suffering on his face was fantastic because he doesn't know what to do with it. And I would tell you, all my life up until when I shifted, I would make that okay for him. I'd try to explain it away. Let me help you with your uncomfortableness. That was the Libra. I want you to feel okay about this. And I just sat there and went, "Nah, you carry it now. I don't want to do this."
It's exhausting constantly needing to explain yourself and
Yes.
feeling like you're on a defensive interview with everyone. And
Yeah.
you can't live your life like that.
I
Not
know.
everyone's going to get you, and it doesn't have to do with you. People understand reality at their own level of consciousness. That has nothing to do with you. And the tricky part is, when you're evolved and developed, it's getting to that exact point where you don't need to explain yourself. But
Yeah.
when you do need to explain yourself, that's exhausting as anything, because we're vibrating higher, people are low, and you have to constantly bring your energy down, and it's exhausting.
Well, when you make things about you is when you lose all perspective anyway. You don't make it about you. If somebody's judging or critiquing you and you get upset about it, that's about you. That's just that person's nature. They're just idiots or they're assholes, whatever they are, they're just judgmental.
Don
Yeah,
Miguel Ruiz is don't take things personally, and
and
all
that is
stuff.
a huge difficulty for most people because our egos are based in wanting to belong and fit in into culture, into society, and feel like we're not alone. Well, guess what? We are all alone. Literally, we really are. We're here with ourselves and our guides of spirit, of their soul. I call it our soul. I think God is part of our soul. They're connected. There's a higher energy that guides us, and I think it's attached to the part we don't listen to or hear. And the thing that when you answer the question, "This is what I want," and then you go after it. It's not that complicated.
No. My question for you is, let's say, a lot of people will ask me, someone who's born the same day, the same time, the same place, how do they differentiate,
Twins.
astrologically?
Someone's have an identical twin. Yeah.
So they won't be the same person, but they may have similar tendencies or life paths.
I always find that twins, whether it's identical or fraternal, they're always going to be completely opposite from each other. And I've done many readings for twins. And I remember one of the favorite examples is these two gals, and they had very strong leadership profiles in their story. And one of them, and they look fairly much alike too. One of them was a fitness instructor. She was ripped. She was healthy. She ate everything, and she had a fitness, class and everything else. Her sister, her twin sister, was the leader of all the bad girls. Where are we partying? Where are we drinking? Where are we getting drugs? They were the same leader person doing very opposite things with what they chose to lead through. And they don't usually, very rare do I get those that do everything the same, which is kind of scary and you think about it, because then they're too tied together. My partner now that I've been with for 20 years, he's a massive Pisces, and Pisces are a twin sign, Pisces, Virgo, and Gemini and Sag. Massive Pisces. And so when I laughed because when I met him, he said, "Well, I was born of an identical twin, but my twin didn't make it and I did." And so he was a preemie. His mom was like, I don't know how into the month she was, but he was like 2.6 ounces and his brother was like 2.4. His brother didn't make it and he did. And he said to me, "I felt guilty. I think it was my fault because I took all the nutrients." Can you imagine that consciousness?
Oh, I grew up with it. I grew up Jewish guilt, every culture in guilt,
There.
but yeah.
Well, he was raised
Yeah.
into a massive Pentecostal Christian family, so it was obviously going to be part of his journey. But
Yeah.
he actually immediately felt that it was his
It was
fault, and
his burden and yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So that's an old wound from a past life. That when he loses something, it's his fault, and so he's afraid to lose things. And so when he met me, talk about codependency.
Hmm.
He couldn't make a decision to save his life. It's like, okay, what should I do? What should I do? And I'm like, I had to teach him to wean himself off that if he wanted it. It's that he had to. It's like, it's you need to find that side that you're not afraid to take risks and do things and feel like if things go bad, it was your fault. So, and he's come a long way. He's come a very long way.
It's almost kind of like psychoanalytical work, but when you go to the point of origin of your pathology, you
Mhm.
understand the root, whether that's in this lifetime or beyond it. Amazing things. And I say messages are repeated until lessons are embraced. So I think,
Mhm.
people really need to understand the root cause of their dysfunction. It's kind of like you take a flower pot, you put a lot of water and positive affirmations in it, it's just going to create mud. You take
Yeah.
the water out, you take the dirt out and you put water in, you have clear, insight, clear vision. So a lot of people just muddy themselves with all this positive affirmations and stuff like that. And it's really about going to the root of the issue, not, bypassing it, which our culture so loves to do.
I laugh because you just became a Taurus in that entire statement. You
I'll
use
take
Earth
it.
as a symbolism to the
Yeah.
storyline. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
This is my observation. I watch things, I see things, and people don't
Yeah.
realize they're playing their nature.
I
Yeah,
yeah, well, there's a great deal of stigma with a lot of the sun signs. I think people think Taurians are supposed to be Velcro asses and just sit on your behinds all day, eat food, and that's not true. We are determined, we are grounded, we are
oh yeah,
loyal, we are mystical too. The Earth, to kind of
they're
think of,
artistic.
yeah, ruled by Venus. So I think a lot of people focus on the stigmas of their sun signs. But my question for you is, we have a culture very much obsessed with sun signs. I don't know why, because back in the day they used to go by the moon sign, if I'm not mistaken. So for like just casuals listening, could you break down sun, moon, rising, and anything
Right,
else
right.
within it? Because I think that's important because people get we're a very glib society. We get so stuck on the superficiality of all things, including astrology. So
Well,
take
the
take
sun
us
is
through it.
our personality and how we want to be seen, essentially. So because everything revolves around the sun. It's like Leo is like the biggest personality because everything and the most subjective of signs is Leo because everything revolves around the sun. So they can't see it outside somebody else because it's the only way they see it. And then they want everyone else to see it the way they do, and they get upset if you won't do it. And Aquarius is the opposite. Their opposition is they're very mental. They look at everything without themselves in it, and there's no emotional involvement whatsoever. So, Sun is your personality of how you present yourself to the world and its characteristics and nature. I always laugh at Taurus. I always say it's eat, sleep, sex, repeat because they want the sensual answers to life. That's kind of like, yes, you can overdo or you can be very healthy. It doesn't matter how you play that out, but food does become important. They make great cooks, and
It's true.
food's an issue for them. And then they love sleeping and sex, because it's part of Scorpio, the other side. And so, but see, Taurus is more what we call the self-sufficient. If you see a little Taurus boy like you on a playground, you're not around other kids. You're all by yourself and you're playing with your toys. And if a kid came over and said, "Oh, let me play with you with your toy," you'd be like, "No, don't touch my stuff."
It's funny that you mentioned a playground because that's where I had my near-death experience on.
Well, yeah.
It's,
So
I'm a
you,
child in God's playground, right? But yeah, it's
yeah,
true. Always been a loner, always been
yes.
very independent. I
That's well, and the Aries helps that too. But then that's the sun sign. So the moon is more important when we talk about relationships and everything else. The moon represents our emotional security and survival instincts.
hmm,
And it represents the past. It represents the family and what we brought in karmically that created those things. And that's why I say it's always hard to go home for the holidays because we go back into the karma and the wounds open up immediately.
hmm,
So,
yeah,
but the whole point is it's like the known and the familiar that the moon represents. Oh, it's always played out in the family you're born into, and those triggers are always there, even in your relationships later on. And so understand that those people will always be who they are because they're your teachers to show you what you're trying to move away from. And so, you know, the point is, it's like, you know, I've been kicked out of my family. It's like, good, because it's not working for you anyway. The moon is the thing that has the desire to hold on to that which is known and familiar, and the desire to liberate from it and try something else. It's the most complicated for that reason. So I have a moon in Sagittarius, so I'm a freedom-loving soul, and I love to travel, and I played tennis all my life, and I'm a comic. You know, that's a funny sign. The Sagittarians think they know everything already, and so there's a part of me that I'm an intuitive. I do know all the time. It's just how I am. But it's annoying to people. So the moon is really more important when you talk about I have a moon in Aries and my partner has a moon in Libra. That's going to be a conflict. So, you know, whatever that looks like. And then the rising is how you initiate into life. It's not how other people see you. That's a misnomer. So I have a Cancer.
You hear that all the time, like your physical appearance, how you look. That's an astrological myth. Yeah.
Well, it's a misnomer because it's not really how it works.
Yeah.
Aries is the beginning of the first house. I have Cancer on my rising. So I approach things very cautiously with feeling. I feel things before I know how I'm going to go into it. So for a big personality, because I'm all like fire and air, I have a big personality once you get to know me, because that's how a Cancer is. In new situations, they're very quiet. They're observing. Is it safe to be here? You know, and then they look at where they're needed. You're going to need me somewhere. I got to be needed. So let's figure out where you need me. Once they're around their comfortable place, around people they're familiar with and comfortable with, they're the life of the party. So, you know, they come out. But it's also somebody that wants to be in relationships, but more nurturing. And I'm a very big nurturer in my relationships. So, you know, you having an Aries rising, you know, and you have got a moon there, you're very spontaneous, but you don't know what direction to go into, unfortunately, because Mars is in Pisces. But it's like, I'll try this, I'll try that, I'll try this, I'll try that. And so you're a risk taker, but you initiate yourself. Those things, all three of those is you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to, whether you work in autonomy in a profession where you're like, tell me what to do now, leave me alone. That's you. So
all of my grandparents, 3 out of my 4 grandparents were Aries, and I think 2 of them were like big personalities, entrepreneurs, leaders. Absolutely. You know, we need to break ground. We're good at getting things started, but bad at finishing things. We like to get things started.
Oh, absolutely. You're the just do it people. The Aries, especially with the moon there, you have to be independent in a relationship. You can't be smothered. You would go nuts.
No,
so
I even live apart from my partner, so that's true.
That's not surprising at all, because you don't want people touching your stuff and moving your things around.
No,
you're living fully to your energy. So, and again, I want to tell you something, Jacob. So what? It's who you are. It's what you are.
That's who I am. My question is, how come some people seem to be true to their sign, and others, you know, they just don't seem to be?
It depends on where it is in the chart. Okay, this is why it gets complicated, and why I'm teaching a class is very. I have a class that I do for Allison's Dead University, and I said it's going to take you a long time to figure this out. If you have a Leo sun sign and it's in the 12th house of Pisces, you're not playing out the Leo personality because it's hidden in the darkest part of the chart. So, you know, the Mormon guy I had the reading for last week, he had Leo ruling his 12th house. And I said, you never got to be a child. You've been a parent since the minute you came into this world, because everything else was about his responsibility and everything. That's why he couldn't say, what do I want? Because he was taking care of a wife and his family and his money and his business and everything else. I said, you never got to play. And there were signatures in the chart. I mean, I picked this up psychically because I do that in readings. And I said, you like cars? And he says, I do. And I said, they're your toys. And I go, and you know, he goes, well, my wife never lets me buy them because she's parenting you, because her fear is money, and you're spending money on things that a woman says that's ridiculous. Those are just toys for boys, but they're your toys. you see, and they give you pleasure, and they're all the things that you work and do for everybody else is the one thing you want for yourself, but you can't, you don't know what your child is inside. And it was true. So, you know, if you're somebody that has the sun or the moon in the 12th house, you're always behind the scenes. You're not out front, no matter what sign you are. So understand the complication of the subject itself.
So it has to deal with a lot of the houses and positions. You know, not all
Just,
things are equal. Just because you're a Virgo does not mean that all are,
no, it
you know,
isn't, because you know there's a duality to everything, and a Virgo needs to be needed. Okay, so the reason Virgos are unfortunate in their nature for most people is because they are fixers, they're problem solvers. If everything were perfect, they wouldn't be on the planet. That is their job. And
perfectionists. And
so
you
that
think of, yeah,
no, they have to find out what's wrong with something in order to be able to fix it.
right, right.
Okay, so they are the critic and the judgment of everything, because their job is like, well, that's not how you do it. I got to show you a better way of doing this. Okay, it's the
So
same
true.
with Capricorn. You can't get a positive statement out of a Virgo or a Capricorn to save your life, because everything has to be hard in a Capricorn's world. It's not easy. It has to be hard. That's the value. It has to have a purpose.
With a lot of Virgos, though, I see devotion to their craft. I mean, I look at Kobe
Detail.
Bryant or
They're,
Michael Jackson. You know, they're
they're
so
technique
working.
oriented.
Yeah,
They want a skill set.
very devoted to their craft and
Yes.
perfecting it. And
Yes.
you know, I love that. You know, as an Earth sign, I'm all for that. You know, that's a beautiful
Well,
thing.
obviously, I mean, you know, they are the ones that do all the details in the work, and work all that. They overwork. They exhaust themselves because they are too focused on what more has to be done, if you will. They're very detailed. They're great, you know, designing closets and clearing up your house and getting rid of things. They never have their world together, but they're organizing everybody else's because they don't take care of themselves. So that's an issue. But yeah, it's just, you know, there's so many. I'll give you the breakdown. The planets in a chart are what? Okay. So the planet Pluto is the Pluto is the planet of transformation, death, and rebirth. The sign it rules is Scorpio. The sign is how it does how it transforms. Okay. And then where it is in the chart in the houses is where it plays out. So all those things, you put them together, and you put a whole chart together in every aspect of those things. It takes a long time to learn. I still spend 2 hours studying a chart before I do a reading.
I truly admire you, because for me, I know the bare basics, but beyond that, I hit a wall because it's so complex and there's
It's
so many
extremely complex.
details, and it's not for everyone. But yeah, you know, one of my last questions for you. I know you mentioned past lives, which is a big, you know, passion of my heart. I do past life regression therapy, and ever since a child, I've been connected to other, you know, incarnations. But when you look at a chart, is that within like sometimes some people say like the north node or the south node? Like,
Yeah,
how
the
do you
nodes are the past and the future. So the
how do you
south node
find, yeah,
is the karma. That's the past.
so that could give like some insight as to where, you know,
Yes.
what,
So
you know,
I can give you what it felt like in the past life in your story, and what you could have been doing. I can't give you specifics, but I can say this is what you were doing and why you were doing it and all the things that you did. I had a past life regression before I even was very more aware of my own nodes and what they meant. And it was in the 20s. I get the sense that the 30 to 40 years seems to be the past life time frame. And this is why we repeat songs and fashion and everything like every 20, 30, 40 years, because we go back to what we remember and then we redo it, make it different, but it's the same thing. So I was in the 20s because I was born in the mid 50s, and very drawn to the music of the time and the, you know, the whole feel. I mean, I came in wanting to have Manhattans right away. You know, that was, everyone's getting rum and Coke, and I'm getting, you know, bourbon and 7, and I'm like, why am I the odd one? So, but anyway, I was obsessed with money. I was obsessed with money, and I was making deals everywhere, and had a family. I was married with 4 kids. I was overwhelmed. I felt over responsible, trying to make money, was so driven by success and money. I was a massive alcoholic, and I was so unhappy in my life. And so I got the parents that I had no foundation, none. And in the elements of my chart, because I do the elements, I have actually no earth in my chart, none.
Fascinating. I have
And
no
so
air. I have no air in my chart, which is interesting too.
that means, well, pull that up. You've got a lot of earth, you got a lot of fire and earth.
Fire, water, and
This-
earth. Yeah.
yeah. And I actually have, that means air is observation. So you personalize pretty much everything. It is, it's reason observation. So it's hard for you to separate yourself from it for that reason. I actually was adopted initially. And then I was adopted to two parents that couldn't be parents and weren't there through my childhood. So I guess in this lifetime, my gift in that storyline was that you're on your own, whether you like it or not. And so I could have been a victim, I could have been angry, I could have been, all kinds of awful things. But there's something in my soul that knew it was okay to figure this out this time. I did not want to do what I did in my
and to be
past.
different and to trust in a greater intelligence inside of
Yeah.
us over the fear or what we were exposed to in this life around us. Most people are leaves and currents. Very few people generate their own. And it seems like for you, you've really generated and tapped into something greater than your external, surroundings growing up,
I
certainly,
had to, I had no choice.
to survive. Yeah.
It was one way or the other. My religion, I was raised, my grandmother came in and did rescue me from a lot of these issues later in my childhood. And she was very different. She was a Pisces, unconditionally loving, full of fear, but full of love at the same time. And so I attached to her energy very quickly because that's my nature, is to attach to people's energy. And I don't think I'd be who I am without that gift. And she's never left me, even when she passed in 1990. She's the one that helped me get to where I am, and I know that. But she raised me a Christian Scientist.
Wow.
Do you know that religion? Do you understand what it is?
Yeah, I've certainly, heard about it, read about it.
A
Yes.
Christian Science is a metaphysical belief system that was tied to dogma, tied to the Bible. Mary Baker Eddy wrote a book in the late 19th century called The Science and Health. If you read the book, it's the beginning concept of quantum physics and quantum theory. The whole point is that we can heal ourselves, our diseases. We're diseased, but we created the diseases, so therefore we can heal them. So that's why the concept is, you don't need to go to a doctor. You just pray to God and these things. And it was gotten completely misconstrued. And the point is, I do believe in metaphysics. I believe that which you disease, you can also heal. But it's going to take time to know where the healing is. And that's part of my work, is to get you to heal the wounds of the past first.
Yeah, to go to that point of origin.
Yes.
Final question is, do you believe that each of us carries a dominant element, from earth, air, fire, and water within our persona, within our soul? Is that something that people like? Could you pick up on personalities who come into you that feel more water dominant or fire? Is that, a thing, or that's just a
I actually prefer, when I get charts that are fairly evenly balanced, or much more balanced in themselves and in their life. Those that come in like me, because the thing we're missing is the thing we're going to end up working on, whether we like it or not, because that's the thing where it's empty. That has to be filled. So yeah, for me, having no earth, and I laugh because my other half is all water and earth, some earth. So he's really mud, and he is stuck in a lot of things in himself. So, I get the energy of it, but I don't know. I never pick up a dominant until I get the person, without doing their chart, just a person I meet, I can pick it up. I can pick up the part that's the strongest, especially if someone is very needy. They're more water energy. The needy ones and the sensitive ones, the ones that are easily hurt, things like that, are the water ones. The ones that are very, very in your face and confrontational are going to be the fire. The air are the ones that are very intellectual and everything's up in the head. Sure. And then the earth is someone who's extraordinarily practical, and everything is just about practical and boring. It's just like, okay, whatever.
So where we're missing in our chart is something that we need to work on. For an example, myself, I know I'm making everything about myself today. I'm boring, but I'll take myself
we're supposed to do it this way.
I'll take myself as an example. Like, no air, I'm writing books and I'm doing podcasts. I'm not a natural communicator. I'm not so social, but this is what I need to do to evolve, my soul, and to
this is your risk.
Yeah, but naturally I'm not like a talker. I'm very private, very to myself. So this is stretching my soul. So I understand what you're saying there.
How old are you?
33, like I said, 1990.
Okay, you got a long way to go. I'm glad you're getting it early. You're figuring this out.
A
So
little
yeah,
bit,
that is your stretch is. See, I had no problem getting on stage or being an actor because I'm fired air. It's like, my personality is strong
right?
and very, but not initially because I have a Cancer rising. So, it took me a while to find my confidence. Then I had no problem. And so for you, finding the air in your thing is to, look at things much more objectively,
Mhm.
and yourself, the communication becomes very important because that's what air is. And now you're putting yourself in a podcast and writing a book and all the things. It's like, I never knew I could do this because you never had, you
Yeah.
see. And that's your risk. Your risk is doing that and putting yourself out there because you are very easily self-contained. You're living alone and you're in a relationship. Come on.
Yeah. Well, we just have to kind of like expand our comfort zones and evolve. But Tom, is there anything else that we, left out today? Any other messages that you may have for my viewers, as well as anywhere, someone is interested in booking a reading with you or a session, how could they find, Tom
Okay,
McMullen? Yeah.
so my website is tommcmullen.com, and that's A-N on the end, not E-N.
Mm,
And Facebook and Instagram are astrologist_Tom. And I usually am booked 2 to 3 months at a time, always.
mm,
It never seems to end, which is fine because I don't want it to, and Spirit doesn't want it to either, apparently. And my readings are an hour. My fee is $350. I usually invoice through PayPal or Zelle. And I call you and record your readings, so I need phone numbers of your phone number and where you live for time zone reasons. It's all on my website. So it'll have my bio, it'll have all the things I need from you in order to get a reading from me. And that's pretty much it. That's taking care of business essentially. I will say, give you a big thing, overall picture instead of all the small pieces about where we're all going. And there's so many levels I can do this, by the way, but you say
We'll
talk
have
about.
to bring you on. You'll be my resident astrologer, but I don't want to get in the way of territory. I know you're Allison's, but you're welcome at any time on my channel.
Well, I appreciate that. But we have all these layers of things that are affecting us, and I see all of them. I'm that much air where I can see the big picture. And we are going into a big transition collectively as a consciousness, as we're moving out of Earth energy been around for the last 200 years. Everything in our development in the last 200 years has been Earth element. And this is the time of the Industrial Revolution and building cities and communities, and all the resources are Earth driven. All our building materials are physical. Everything is Earth driven. Our money, it's all about money, and money is in banking, and everything that we've been going through in our development 200 years has been Earth. Well, it is now shifting away from that, and we will now go into another 200-year period that is already just initiated and started, that will all be air qualities. It'll be Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. So the next 200 years, we move out of the Earth element and into the air and the intellectual. So this will be a vast, fast change, improvement, innovation, and science, medicine, technology. If you have any money, Mr. Taurus, put it in science, medicine, and technology, because that's where it's all going. And it's already been introduced to us of why. We had a pandemic to understand that we could now invent a cure for something that was a global disease that could kill our whole society. And that overnight we invented a vaccine that had to be invented. So it shows you the shift of what we're going to have to learn to do. The other is, we started talking recently about AI, and you're probably too young to see the movie War Games, where Matthew Broderick had this machine that he ended up thought he was playing a game, this computer, and then wanted to end the world and humanity. And that's like, all of a sudden we're fearing that, oh my God, we can't go that far, but it wants to happen. If you notice, it's kind of like, ooh, that sounds scary. So change is going to be a lot faster in areas of climate, Earth-driven things that are climate-driven by resources that are not Earth-driven. So, I mean, I have a battery car now, so I'm happy. I'm like completely, off the grid of the Earth energy, and love it because it's the future. So because I look into the future and see it, I know where we're going. I just like to give advice to others. It's like, start looking at shifting your life into progress and change and getting used to it, because it's going to happen faster and faster. But
And
there's so much resistance.
and be open. What we resist persists. What we let go will allow to grow. So I think it's,
Yeah, yeah,
opening ourselves. Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. It's a protective mechanism that people have with
yeah.
change. Well, Tom, thank you so much, Tom McMullen, for coming on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. You're welcome back. Any given time, you are absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm gonna be buzzing for days after this. I can't believe, you're an actual human being and all that knowledge is in one person. You're a total powerhouse. And
Well, it's funny
you know,
because I overwhelm people. That's why I record readings. I go, whenever I get a Virgo or a Gemini or someone that wants to take notes, I go, you're not going to take notes, because I'm going to tell you, you're going to start writing and then you're never going to write through the rest of it. It's 20 years of therapy in an hour is what I call it. So I don't think I'm expensive at $350 an hour.
you're quite a
So
bargain. Yeah.
it's a bargain. But nonetheless, that's why I give this, and then people go away just like you're feeling right now. And then essentially, especially when it's their own journey, and then I go, you're going to listen to this a dozen times and it'll all make sense the more you do. You'll piece it apart. I've just given it all at once. And I know it's overwhelming to people, and I have empathy for that. But that's why it's like, give it time. We don't change overnight. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
I just,
it's not overwhelming. It's inspiring, you know.
well, that's the goal.
You really inspired me, and I think when you're in spirit, you inspire. You're certainly someone
Yeah,
who's very aligned, and I encourage my viewers to constantly look at all my videos, but particularly this one, because I know there's a great deal of content that they could have to really shift the needle of their lives to progress, versus as we discussed, that victim mindset and stagnation.
right.
So.
The end of my readings, Jacob, I always say, my job is to validate you and give you permission, but I cannot make you do it. You're in charge of your own destiny. I'm just trying to help you on the way, give you some guidance.
Which is antithetical to the millennial way where we're used to other things externally governing our lives. So
Right.
I think what you're doing is exactly what people need, that sense of self-empowerment. And if you don't know who you are, you could be anybody. If you don't know where you're going, you could be anywhere. So you help with
Yeah,
self-awareness and direction. So
yeah.
I thank you for that. Well, Tom, God bless. Thank you so much for coming on. You're welcome anytime. And let's stay in touch, okay?
Okay, thank you for having me. And this was very much a pleasure meeting you too, also, Jacob. And thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you for your generosity and brilliance. Okay.
Wow, that was a wonderful interview. Thank you, Tom McMullen, for your generous time and all of your insights. I'm going to personally review this interview several times. I know it's going to be helpful to me, and I'm sure my viewers will take a lot from this, their ability to understand astrology. And it's kind of like spirituality, practicality. And I know Tom was able to deliver ways for us to really understand what astrology is, debunk some of the cultural myths of it, and ways for us to really cultivate it, utilize it in our everyday lives. So Tom is, going to be welcome back on the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder anytime. He was just a brilliant guest, and I'm so glad to have him on. So thank you for tuning on to the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder. Thank you all for tuning in. This is Jacob Cooper signing off with you, with renowned astrologer Tom McMullen. A real honor to have him. We'll definitely have him back. For those of you who are viewing the video, please make sure to subscribe. Feel free to share it with any family and friends, and you can check us out on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and plenty more episodes dropping each Wednesday every week. But this is Jacob Cooper signing off, and thank you for listening to my incredible interview with Tom McMullen.